the Lake View Sanitarium. It's a place that should be haunted.
It was a tuberculosis center that was built in 1930.
Innumerable deaths, suffering.
It's a place where people went to die. If anything, I think you can really feel that. It's been reported that an apparition has been seen in the trails on the hill behind the building.
There's three main areas where paranormal activity is reported. The main grounds, which is now a county park, on the hill behind the building. That's where we get reports of an apparition of a lady sitting on a bench.
Disembodied voices, feeling of being watched.
People having their hair pulled or being touched.
People claim to have been attacked by an apparition which followed them home. The graveyard,
where there's been reports of a lot of activity in the graveyard bordering on the woods of the park. And the old nurse's dorm, which is now closed and off limits to anybody.
People have seen apparitions moving around or shadows moving around inside of this abandoned building. The grounds themselves have several features that would naturally support activity, including moving water. That water tower was established there.
The hill itself is made up of crystalline limestone
and bedrock.
There are reports of there actually being a cave system. All the entrances have been lost. They've either been sealed or nobody knows where they are.
Oral and written accounts from decades past describe an entrance that was permanently sealed off by the county around 1970 after some children went missing for several days, apparently lost in these caves. There are no records, but apparently this entrance is sealed off permanently. We have no idea what is down there. One of the claims that was made about this place was that it was haunted due to it being burial grounds for First Nation.
In 1997, there was an archaeological survey done,
indicating a possible ancient earthwork or burial mound just north of the water tower. In 2008, the Great Lakes Archaeological Research Center was hired to conduct another survey of the grounds, in which they dismissed the idea of these earth features as being prehistoric, and rather determined that the first mound on top of the hill near the water tower
was in fact a ice rink built by one of the ground superintendents.
There are some issues with this. First of all, this guy would have had to clear a flat portion of the hill. It's a significant amount of earth. And secondly,
we've found no first-hand account from any patients of there being a ice rink on the grounds.
I also think it's a little odd that doctors would release their patients to go ice skating in the middle of winter with TB. With the limited core samples and the issues that these studies had, I'm not convinced that these features are not prehistoric.
If there's no proof that it was there other than what somebody said in 2008,
possibility of ancient prehistoric earthworks still exist on that hill. There is a second mound south of the nurses' dormitory that they say that they looked at and did some limited probing, only to find that they couldn't penetrate very deeply because it was filled with cinder.
There could be a third mound around the top of the graveyard that's there, which would solidify that where these mounds are, there is paranormal activity.
I'm interested in the types of experiences that people have had on this hill. Some of the experiences people have had aren't consistent with peaceful patients living at Lake View Sanitarium. Really what they're describing is a sort of anger that may be the result of a disturbance, a geological disturbance, of possibly the development on top of this hill has disturbed something very old.
One of the rumors of Lake View Sanitarium is that there was a crematorium on the grounds where they would burn the bodies of the deceased patients.
These rumors are not based on any fact that we can find.
But we have found there was a place where they would dump medical waste and belongings of the patients.
Sanitarium would do away with patient linens and bed sheets and things, and bury them in a dump, which was essentially placed on top of what they think is a sinkhole leading down into the cave system below the hill. I think this leads us into another theory about object attachment.
Object attachment can promote paranormal activity.
Items that are close to a person can somehow retain a psychic link or connection to that individual. We've got a formula for a haunting here. I really want to know if this place is haunted.
Get a weird sense of being watched. We did 4 investigations in the place. I don't know what it is. You feel it. They don't ever make those things that aren't creepy. There's the bench.
Look how overgrown it is. Let's set up our equipment here. What triggers the phenomenon at Sanitarium? Did you hear that down there to my left? What triggers the experience to happen? Is it an atmospheric condition? Is it something that somebody says? We want to know. We tried a lot of things. We made some really passionate attempts. I'm out here alone at the Sanitarium Hill during a blood moon lunar eclipse. Were you a patient at this facility? We did a lot of research into the patients and what their lives were like while they stayed at this facility. We read their newsletters. I've called out the names of these patients and have yet to get a response. No spirit voices that we can definitively say are disembodied voices, other than a few screams or cries that I heard resound through the forest on my blood moon investigation. I just heard some kind of a scream or cry from distant left, or chilling. Can you do it again? There's no way to rule this out as contamination, possibly a nearby neighborhood. I'm hearing some kind of scream or voice echoing through the woods.
One of the things that we found on Sanitarium Hill is a giant EMF field. This should be food source for any entities that are out there.
Transformer on the base of the water tower, there's transformers that radiate a field that basically blankets that hill.
See there, we're getting a good steady.
Yeah. And that
EMF
field
spikes.
extends to the bench
I'm just
area
wondering
and probably a little beyond
Does that
that.
affect the ovulus at all?
Doesn't seem to be.
No.
EMF fields affect the temporal lobe of the brain.
Even weak fields, and we're talking certainly weaker than a fridge magnet, can affect the temporal lobes in the human brain to such an extent that one can feel like they're being watched.
Like you're being followed. Get a weird sense of being watched.
Or had fear experiences.
This is what's known as a fear cage.
In extreme situations, which was demonstrated by the God helmet experiment, people have actually had paranormal experiences and even religious experiences where people are convinced that they're actually in the presence of God. That electromagnetic field does not extend to the graveyard
EMF fields can't pull your hair.
and can't explain any experiences that people have had in that graveyard or in the nurses' dorm building for that matter.
One of the claims is seeing shadow figures through the windows.
They don't even allow access into this.
Anybody in that building?
Further investigation of this site is important.
Talk to us.
Let's head back to the car.
And it would be important to be able to actually get inside that building.
Did the nurses take good care of you?
Our findings are very inconclusive out here.
Something triggers the activity there. And Tom and I so far haven't been able to figure out what that is.
It deserves further investigation. The Lake View Sanitarium grounds should be haunted.
The apparent lack of evidence here in this case doesn't necessarily support the idea that it's not haunted. I hope our foray into this field here opens up the doors for more paranormal research and certainly for more geological and historical study of this site. I'd like to see this hilltop preserved and understood.
It's not a mouse.